Today we're talking about raising venture capital for a startup with Roscoe Price Moor, founder and managing director of Roady. Thanks for coming in today, Roscoe, and being willing to have the spotlight turned on you by Wellington City Libraries. Let's kick off by asking you to give us your elevator pitch for Roady.
Yeah, cool. No, thanks for having me. Roady makes it easy for travellers to access local knowledge and plan epic trips, and we do this in two ways. The first is through our content, so we've got our social media channels which are nearing on 200,000, and we do a lot of work with tourism boards and brands creating engaging travel content and distributing it through our channels and giving people information and inspiration to get out there and explore New Zealand. And then we've recently released an app about 4 months ago which helps people basically get inspiration for travel, plan their trip by creating bucket lists, and then tick off these experiences as they travel the country.
That sounds really interesting. Roady officially launched in August 22, but its origins go back 5 years. Tell us a bit about the backstory up until March 2020.
Yeah, cool. So before COVID, Roady was offering self-drive trips to the international market. So basically car accommodation, itinerary packages for international travellers coming over. It was ticking along quite nicely. But then, of course, when COVID came along, it put a pretty swift end to that. So I kind of had to go back to the drawing board and reassess our plans.
So COVID for you was a crossroads, wasn't it? And can you explain to our viewers how the shutdown provided you with a new opportunity to go in a different direction?
Yeah, I think it was just a really great chance to reflect on the business model, and while it was going fairly well and I was having decent interest in the trips, getting good feedback, the process of putting together these tours for our travellers was really manual. It was us behind the scenes, making these itineraries in Google Docs and making all the bookings. So it gave me an opportunity to reflect on that and think, is there a way we can do this better and scale up and potentially solve the problem for more people?
Yeah. So you then enrolled with the Creative HQ Incubator program. That was what spurred you into doing that?
Yeah. So then I found Creative HQ, kind of Wellington's innovation hub. They work with a lot of startups to help them basically turn their ideas into real world solutions. And I got into the incubator program and basically spent 3 or 4 months lying on beanbags, scratching my head, working out what my next move was, and just sort of speaking with a lot of travellers really, to work out their pain points and work out, what's the actual problem that I can solve for these people. And then an opportunity came up to be involved in a tourism accelerator, so tourism specific accelerator. They were accepting 6 teams into that accelerator, and I had this idea for an app that would basically solve this problem and allow people to plan travel for themselves. So I pitched the idea of this app, managed to get into the accelerator, and then basically spent the next 4 months working on this idea and bringing it to life, so that I had this concept that was ready to go at the end of that accelerator.
And you got advice, you got mentoring through the program, you got encouragement to apply for startup funding. So how did you take that next step to getting Roady off the ground from the incubator program into it becoming a reality? Or the app specifically?
I guess up till that point I'd completely bootstrapped the whole time, so raising capital was completely new to me. And that was certainly something that Creative HQ and the mentors in the program helped with, is kind of making me aware of the different options out there and how that could help. And I guess building an app's not cheap, so I knew I was going to need some funding to get that off the ground. And off the back of the accelerator, I had the opportunity to pitch to Angel HQ, and I was able to raise some money to essentially make my first hire and fund the initial development of the MVP for that.
Can you give us an overview of how Angel HQ works? Who are the people behind it and what do they do for new business?
Yeah, for sure. Angel HQ is basically Wellington's investor club, and so it's a group of people that essentially invest in early stage startups with global potential. So they're really looking for companies that they believe can go global and be successful. And they very much are involved with a lot of the startups that they invest in as well. And you're getting more than just capital. Often you're getting mentors or people that are on your board, or people that are supporting in other ways.
Right. And you're a very social media savvy company, and you've got fantastic images across your website and through the app. Why did you choose this option for investment funding and not, for example, going to a crowdsourcing platform like others do, or even just knocking on the doors of the bank or family members who might have been able to fund you a bit?
Yeah, the crowdfunding process is interesting to me, and I think with crowdfunding, if you have a brand that has a lot of following or a lot of engaged community, it can be a good way to sort of bring them in and make them, even more involved in what you're doing. The key, I guess, decision for me not going down that path versus going to Angel HQ is probably the time that a crowdfunding sort of project can take, and speaking to other founders that have gone through that, it can be kind of like a 6-month to 12-month affair of creating the marketing collateral. You've got to speak to a lot more people, because with Angel HQ you're getting sort of more high value investors versus crowdfunding, where you potentially get lower quantities of investment, so there's a lot more conversations to be had with people. So while I do like the idea, I was conscious of the time it would take me away from the business and the other things, and I was trying to sort of reduce that time spent in the capital raising process so that I could focus on growing the business itself.
Yeah, that's a really important point. People are probably familiar with the Dragon's Den style investor pitch, but what's it actually like as a new startup to stand in front of a group of people and ask for a considerable sum of money to fund an idea you're passionate about and you think's going to fly, but which potential investors may well be sceptical of or just not understand?
Yes, certainly daunting, especially the first time round. I think you've just really got to be confident in what you're doing and have a clear plan. You really need to, be able to articulate to these investors that what is their money going to get them, what sort of metric are we going to see in 12 months as a result of you putting in this funding. I think if you're clear on that, and obviously you've got to back the product yourself. I would never ask for money if I didn't think that the app was going to be successful. But yeah, having that confidence I think is important, but certainly more daunting at the initial stage when I was pitching on the premise of just an idea rather than like now, and I actually have a product that I'm confident in. So I was pitching back then with no app experience, having never built an app, but just on this idea that I had and backing myself to sort of bring it together. So yeah, I think it's just that confidence that you can pull this thing together.
Yeah. Well, you pulled it off, and now you're stepping up and developing Roady to the next level, I understand. Do you want to tell us a bit about your expansion plans in the 12 months or so ahead?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess on the topic of cap raising, we're in the middle of a capital raise now. We were essentially trying to raise some money to take us into Australia next year. So we've seen some really good, traction and validation on the app here in New Zealand, both with travellers loving it and using it and tourism operators listing on the platform. So we really want to raise some capital so that we can make a few hires over in Australia. We basically need to start populating the app in Australia with, all of Australia's best bucket list experiences. Create some noise over there by doing some large campaigns with the tourism boards, and then we're aiming to launch in October, where we'll be able to have both New Zealand and Australian travellers being able to travel domestically and internationally.
And will the one app cover both New Zealand and Australia, or will I have to download it in Australia to cover the Australian market?
No, it'll be one app for both, so you'll be able to switch between New Zealand and Australia, and you'll basically be able to collect your travels as pins on the map from both New Zealand and Australia, and eventually further abroad.
Great. And how do you plan to fund this expansion of the business?
So at the moment, I pitched to Angel HQ must be about 3 weeks ago now. They have an annual showcase event where they allow, I guess, 10 different companies to come and pitch. So again, that's kind of going back to the whole Dragon's Den sort of scenario where you're pitching to, I think Angel HQ's got 90 members, so there would have been sort of a good 70 odd there. Pitching. Now I'm kind of in the process of having a lot of conversations with investors and sort of rounding up their commitments, and it's basically just going to be determined on how much Angel HQ invests. If I can get enough from them, that would be great. If I can't, then we've kind of got to look at alternative options to fill the round. So I'm also in conversations with Icehouse. There's a few other angel clubs around the country that I could potentially go up and pitch in Auckland or pitch in Marlborough.
Okay. And do you tend to get funding from one individual investor or from a pool of Angel HQ funding?
Yeah.
Or combine them?
Yeah, so with Angel HQ, it's basically individual investors, so that everyone's making their own decision and investing however much they want, but then it comes under the Angel HQ fund on your cap table. So yeah, you don't have a million different investors on your cap table, it'll just say Angel HQ.
Okay. What advice or tips do you have for people who might be wanting to raise money for a startup this way?
Yeah, I think, you just need to be super clear on what you're going to do with that capital, where it's going to take you and why you need it. I was listening to a really good podcast the other day explaining like a good pitch, and it follows the sort of, I guess, timeline that you need to be able to articulate that you notice this problem, and then you notice that a lot of other people shared the same problem, and then you need to basically be able to say, I've got a solution to the problem, and now my solution's doing really well. And if your pitch can kind of follow that story, you'll really get engagement and bring people on the journey.
Roady has also made it their business to partner with like-minded businesses, usually around Wellington. Why is it important to your growth to form those relationships?
Yeah, I guess aside from the financial contribution that we get from our partners, there's definitely a lot more to it than that. So we've currently got 4, I guess, long-term 12-month partnerships. One's with Camplify, who are basically like the Airbnb for campervan travel. So they were Australasian. They've just bought a whole bunch of companies in Europe. So they're really helping us to spread the word about the app as well. We're able to sort of leverage their audience as well as our other partners. Fortune Favours, the craft beer company in Wellington, so we actually brewed a beer with them recently and is available at the Wellington airport and at Leeds Street. So again, it's been awesome to be able to sort of leverage their channels and be able to get, our app promo codes and stuff at the airport. Top 10 holiday parks, so they've got 43 sites around New Zealand, and we've got our marketing collateral and all those sites, which is epic. And then we've recently signed a deal with Polestar, the EV company, as well as ChargeNet, the charging stations, which is kind of helping us move towards our goal of carbon-free road trips, because we're obviously out on the road quite a lot shooting, so it's awesome to be able to do that in an EV and get around without letting off too many emissions.
So you're getting the Roady brand out there and recognised. I think when you launched in August, your press release indicated you'd had about 12,000 plus downloads of the app. Can you give us a ballpark figure of where it's tracking now?
Yeah, we're at 18,500 downloads now, which is really pleasing. And yeah, what I've been most stoked with has been the engagement on the app. So we've had over 31,000 tick-offs, which basically means that our travellers have uploaded over 31,000 photos one by one to the app from places that they've visited.
Right. Going back to the incubator program, and we touched on one of the benefits of undergoing such a program as mentoring. What qualities do you think are necessary in a mentor? I
think a good mentor is a good listener, a good sounding board. I think it's not about directing the founder in one particular direction. You've got to have your opinion, and you've got to share that opinion and your point of view, but you've also got to let the founder do his thing. So I've got great mentors that, and often will disagree on things, but I think the mentors also respect you rather than just going with exactly what they say all the time and running with it. So I think, just being that sounding board and providing value where you can.
In time, do you see yourself becoming part of the next generation of Angel HQ investors and mentors?
Yeah, I'd like to be. I really enjoy helping other people, and even I guess other friends that are starting something, or anything sort of startup related, business related. I love giving my 2 cents and contributing to that conversation. It's cool.
While the Roady business is based around an app, do you consider most businesses could benefit from adding an app to their toolkit of ways in which they can be contacted, ways in which they can put their message out to a client base?
Definitely not. And the reason being, I think you need a clear purpose for an app, like why you need to know why you need an app over a website or other messaging. I think a lot of people have app fatigue. The last 5-10 years we've seen a huge influx in apps, and unless your app's providing something that a website or other forms of communication can, then I don't think there's much point. They're very, very costly, take a lot of effort to for uptake, maintenance. So yeah, you need a clear reason for an app.
Interesting. What should anyone contemplating a road trip around Aotearoa this summer do before setting off? Roscoe?
Well, I like this question. You should download the Roady app. You should plug in where you're heading, make a bucket list, and start populating it with experiences that you want to tick off, and then get out there, take some photos, and upload them, and keep your summer travels logged on the app as pins on your map.
And support local businesses while you're doing it.
Absolutely, we've got to get tourism up and kicking again.
Great. Thank you for your time today, Roscoe. That's been a really interesting insight as to how new businesses are funded and one of the routes that people can go down in order to get financing for their business. So thank you.
No worries, thanks for having me.